So in the last video, we saw how to set up HAPI FHIR using the default configurations. And some of you were asking me how to set it up using a custom database like Postgres or MySQL. So in this video, we'll take a look at how to set up HAPI FHIR using Postgres. So the first thing you want to do is open the Docker compose file. Again, first we'll be doing this using Docker. And under the services, add another service, which will be our DB layer, and make that DB, and we'll just build this from the image Postgres. And now about the Postgres image, if you want to know more, you can just visit the Docker Hub website about that. And here you can see that there are multiple environment variables that you can define here. And I will obviously be defining the password and the user. So I'm just going to copy this, and under environment, I'm going to Postgres password, let that be admin, and Postgres user, let that also be admin for now. Or you can change this to HAPI because that's the application that's going to be using this. And the Postgres DB, by default, it's going to be named after the user, but let's just call this DB FHIR. Okay, and that's about it. That's all we want. And now, since it's a Docker container, we also want to mount it to a particular volume so that our data is persistent across boots, basically. So let's define a volume here, and I'm just going to name it data. I'll define this volume later, and we are going to mount this to the default data volume of Postgres. This is where Postgres usually stores data in the container. Okay, so we're going to mount it there. And now under volumes, we'll just define the data volume. You can name this anything you want. Just make sure that there is a colon after data. So let's just name this FHIR data, and you can name this FHIR data here too. So that's it. And this is our Docker file, and let's just go ahead and check if this is working, and let's do a build. And it's building our Maven image here, so I guess that should just work. So now let's go back to the starter JPA repository, and here you need to come down to the configuration, and since we are doing it with Postgres, you need to change the happy.properties file to reflect this. So we'll do that while this is building. So let's go to happy properties, and here what you need to do is first just copy data source.driver for Postgres. Copy, and let's search for that, and we can see that this is the dialect. We need to copy the driver. The driver, yeah. By default, it's using the H2 driver, and we don't want that. We want to be using our Postgres driver. So let's paste that in here. And the data source.url. Now, this thing is important. Since we are using a container, and since we are running it in Docker, it won't be running in localhost. It will be running inside our DB container. So the way you reference that in Docker is using DB. That's it. And this URL is going to be the name of the database. So we named it FHIR. So let's just call it FHIR. And the data source username, as you can see here, we named it HAPI and HAPI. So let's just name that HAPI and HAPI. And here, this is an easy option to miss, hibernate.dialect, but this is needed if you want it to work. So let's just search for that in the properties. And again, it's using the H2 dialect. We want to be using the Postgres dialect. So let's copy this and replace that here. And that's it. That's pretty much all the changes that you need to do in order to get Postgres working. So let's just do a small check first. So let's first just run our, I will just make this a little larger for you to see. So first, let's just run the DB. And as you can see, we have not mounted this DB to our local machine. It's only accessible inside the container. So let's just make it accessible to our local machine as well by defining the ports. And Postgres runs on 5432, but I'm going to mount it in my local machine at 500 and 5432. The reason is I already have something else running on 5432, my Windows Postgres. So let's just do a docker compose up db. This will only start the db layer and not the server. So I'm going to use DBVisualizer. It's a good tool to look at your DB in Windows at least. So it's opening up. And I'm going to connect to my Postgres Docker instance. So here it's running at localhost, but the port is 5000 and the database is FHIR, and the password and username are both HAPI. Just connect to that. Okay, password authentication failed for user. Role HAPI does not exist. Okay, let's just first make sure that this got created using it is HAPI HAPI. Okay, authentication is failing. Let's just try bringing all of this down, since I might have had a container before this. And let's bring up the DB. And yeah, as you can see, it's creating all of this again. And now let's try port 5000, HAPI. Let's connect. And as you can see, we are inside the database right now. And under the public, you can see the tables that are on the database. But right now, there is nothing because we have not initialized HAPI yet. So let's close, let's stop this, and let's now initialize this with HAPI. I'm just gonna stop this. Docker compose up. You can see that HAPI is doing all that it should. This will take a while because it needs to run migrations and everything else to initialize. Also, a quick note here, if you are using, if you are not running it inside Docker, for example, if you are just running it using Maven, you need not put DB here. You can just replace this with localhost. And if in case you're running the server inside Docker and you're running the database outside, you need to use a special term here called internal dot something. I'll just check it out. Docker access localhost, and it's called post.docker.internal. So it'll look something like this if your database is running on your computer. So you can see that the Jetty server has started, and let's again just go ahead and open Insomnia. And let's just post a patient. Now again, we should be able to reload and see that your connection, please reconnect. Okay, we've connected again, and let's just reload. And you see that most of these tables have been created. And all of this has been created by HAPI FHIR. So our resources will come under the HFJ resource table. So let's just open that for now, HFJ resource. And let's just look at the data. There is nothing here right now. So, but I'm just going to post this patient. So I'm posting that. And it got created. So now let's go ahead and reload this, and you can see that it got our first row in the database. So that is how you configure HAPI FHIR to use Postgres. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll be happy to help again. And thank you for watching. Like this video and subscribe if you want more content.